Sure.
All right, so we'll go ahead and start with introductions as everyone's starting to come into this session. As a reminder, this is session 3, the Lsac panel, application nuts and bolts. Before we start the panel and introductions, we'd like to say thank you to our sponsors, George Mason University, Antonin Scalia Law School, Golden Gate University, University of Houston Law Center, Wake Forest University, and all of our other sponsors. There's many more. To introduce our panel, we have Giselle Joachim, Executive Director of Ambassadors and Education Programs, and Heidi Fox, Manager of LLM and Other Services at Lsac. I'll go ahead and turn the time over to them to introduce themselves a little bit more and begin their session.
Thanks so much. Just going to get some slides running here. Okay, great. So hello, everyone. We're so pleased to be with you today to speak with you a bit about the application process for legal masters, LLMs, and legal certificate programs, and to share with you how the Law School Admission Council, LSAC, can assist you along this journey. Know that LSAC is here to provide information, tools, and services that serve those interested in attending law school, regardless of the program or the degree that you choose to pursue. I am Giselle Joachim, and along with my colleague, Heidi Fox, we will provide you with information about utilizing the LSAC website for your graduate law school exploration, your graduate law program exploration. We'll talk to you a little bit about the candidate referral service. We'll show you how you can search the database that LSAC has of graduate legal programs. And then we're going to give you some more information about some of LSAC's services specifically for graduate law applicants, including electronic application process, a document assembly service, and international transcript evaluation. We're happy to take questions throughout, and we'll be monitoring the Q&A box for questions and the chat box for information that you all want to see. So we're going to take a deeper dive into lsac.org. I'm also going to share with you information about law school forums and how you can utilize those events for your further exploration of programs. And then again, as I said, Heidi is going to share specific information about our services that are direct for you. So let's start with lsac.org. Through the LSAC website, you can register with us to receive information and program announcements along with information directly from law schools through the CRS, our candidate referral service. All of this should assist you in the first part of your admission process, which is deciding where to apply. Selecting a legal master's program may require the casting of a wide net. Many programs are offered completely or predominantly online, and programs tend to be quite industry specific. Do your homework. If your hope is to advance your career through the attainment of a legal master's degree, check with your employer. It's appreciated. Look at LinkedIn. Look at the types of positions that you hope to advance to and see what the underlying degree is that is either required or that people in that position already have. Check job postings. Legal masters are definitely sort of less known in the field, and so you'll want to utilize your program and be able to display your knowledge in a way that your employers or potential employers will find worthwhile. While considering different programs, note that even if it's an online program, choosing where to go fit is still an important consideration in where to apply. Know the outcomes for the schools that you are considering. What does the alumni base look like? Do you see others who have completed your target degree program in the types of positions that you are seeking? Other questions that you may want to consider are things like, are master's students encouraged to participate in the larger law school events and activities? Is that something that matters to you? Some law schools have special graduations for their master's and LLM students. For some, it's in with the JD students. These are the kinds of things that can help you sort of determine the climate of the law school and how somebody pursuing these particular programs fits in with the larger climate. So it's definitely something to be considered. LLM programs are offered to both internationally educated lawyers and JD holders to focus on particular areas of law, specialties such as tax law. Legal master's programs offer legal education usually for non-lawyers in highly regulated industries like health, finance, energy. So for folks who do not plan on practicing law, but for whom regulation and law can really impact their day-to-day activities in their jobs. Now we'll jump to the candidate referral service with LSAC. LSAC's CRS process allows schools to contact and find you directly. This can help you cast that wide net that I mentioned a few slides back. Many schools also provide real benefits to those in the CRS process, like application fee waivers and scholarship program information. So be sure to opt in. If you're concerned about an overabundance of email, set up a separate email account through Gmail to capture and sort through all of these school emails. Now on to our forums. You should also know that every year, LSAC hosts law school forums to connect students and law schools. Back in 2020, due to the pandemic, we began offering digital forums for the first time, and we found them to be so successful and opportunities for us to cast a much wider net, to reach out to students outside of the large cities where we traditionally offer our in-person forums, to be able to interact in a virtual atmosphere with law schools. So in 2021, the current year that we're in, we offered a slate of both digital and in-person forums. In fact, I'm talking to you today from Los Angeles, where we have our final in-person forum of the season. We still have 2 digital forums left, one in December and one in February. And the law schools staff their virtual forum booths with both specific people to talk about the JD programs, but also people who are knowledgeable and are responsible for either teaching in or administrating the legal masters, LLM, and certificate programs. And those are wonderful opportunities for you to gain a tremendous amount of information from all of the law schools across the country, while also having an opportunity to chat either through Zoom rooms or a chat function with individuals at the schools to find out more about their programs. Both the in-person and the digital forums, there are advantages to each. And so we want folks to look at them as complementary rather than interchangeable events. So next year, we'll continue to run both digital and in-person forums. So before I pass things over to my colleague Heidi, who will dig a bit more into LSA services, let me mention a few components common to the applications to these masters and LLM programs. Heidi's going to tell you about our services to help you in the collection of your transcripts. Transcripts are often going to be a required part of your application process for these programs. So you'll want to begin thinking as you're preparing to apply all of the other educational experiences you've had, all of the post-secondary experiences that you've had, whether they're in the States or abroad, to begin collecting all of those transcripts. Some programs may require letters of recommendation. In these cases, oftentimes those letters, they may be requesting to be professional in nature rather than academic in nature, specifically for the master's program, since so many of those programs are really designed for professionals in the fields. They may require a professional letter of recommendation from you. Most programs will require a writing sample, either in the form of a personal statement or a statement of program intention. Again, since so many of these programs are for professionals in the field already, many may request a statement of what it is that you hope to do once you've attained this degree. And they're asking for that both to check on your writing skills, but also to get a better sense if the program is a good fit for what you want the outcomes to be. Certainly, all of these programs are going to want updated resumes. So that is something that you can focus on now, even before you enter the application process, being sure that your resume is accurate and up to date. And finally, some programs may either require or offer the option of an interview, another thing that you'll want to get yourself ready for. With that, I'm going to pass this to my colleague. I will stop sharing and pass this over to Heidi, who will talk with you a bit more about the services that LSAC has to help you.
Thank you, Giselle. I'm going to share my screen now. I just wanted to let you or remind you that, sorry, I can't find my screen. Share, okay. I do apologize. I know we tested this and here it is. Very sorry about that. I'm not as familiar with Zoom, so, but I do want to thank Giselle, and I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. As Giselle said, we have many services at Lsac that you can use when researching and applying to these graduate programs in LLM, master's programs, SJD programs. If you have any questions during the presentation, please remember to put them in the chat or in the Q&A section. And so I'm going to start with researching the information that you would like to know. There are a lot of places that you can go to find information about legal programs, legal academic programs. Lsac.org is one of the best places that you can go to for very direct information, very specific information. So if you go to our website, lsac.org, you'll see that you have different options on how to search for programs through our website. So you can search, if you know the area of the country that you want to search by, you can search by state, you can search in the United States, you can search in Canada. Once you find the law schools that you may be interested in, if you just click on the link, that will take you to information that the schools have provided to us, sort of a brief summary of their program, some of the things that applicants may find interesting, how many students they have, what areas they specialize in, campus information, and there's also a link to the school's website if you want to find more in-depth information about that. You can search alphabetically if you know a specific school that you want to apply to, you can search alphabetically as well. And once you create an account, you can search more in depth, applying different filters about areas of interest, how you want to attend the programs, online programs, that sort of thing, which I'll show you. Okay, so creating an account. Why create an account with Lsac? It streamlines the process for you and for the law schools. So you can search, as I said, you can search for law programs by interest, location, including online programs, how you want to learn. You can participate in the candidate referral service that Giselle explained so that the right law school can find you. A lot of times you may only go by rankings or you may go by recommendations, but there may be the perfect school out there for you that you didn't think of. And the schools can reach out to you if they find that you may be a good candidate for them. You can use Lsac's credential assembly services so that you can request your academic records, your letters of recommendation just once to apply to multiple programs. So if you're applying to 10 programs, you don't have to request 10 separate transcripts to be sent to each of those schools. You can just send one copy to us. We will bundle it together and send it out in a report that goes to the law schools. You can also apply electronically to over 130 participating ABA approved law schools. And there's no charge to set up an account. So you can come in to lsac.org, do some basic research, create an account, do a little more in-depth research without paying any fee at all. So a little more detail about the specific services that we offer that we refer to as the credential assembly service. We have an electronic application service that we refer to as EAPS that allows you to submit electronic applications to law schools. Most of the law schools use us as a middleman, as you will, to collect all of the information through an electronic application and then transmit it electronically to the schools. So not only do they collect the personal information, what you're interested in, what program you're applying to, this is also where you would upload your resume, upload a writing sample if the school requires it, a personal statement, any of those pieces of information that would be included with your actual application. We also have the document assembly service. And this is if you are educated completely in the US, you don't need an international evaluation, or if you're applying to a school that doesn't require the evaluation. So again, you can have your letter sent to LSAC, and your recommender needs to send one letter, regardless of how many schools you're applying to. So that saves them a little bit of work as well, which I know a lot of them probably appreciate. And they can send it through the mail, or they can upload it electronically. So it makes it a little easier for them. Arrange for your transcripts to be sent once. No evaluation is completed at this time. Sending transcripts, Giselle mentioned, we do require transcripts from all education that you've attended, all institutions where you've completed coursework, whether or not you've earned a degree from that institution. We still require, if you did a study abroad, an exchange, summer program, we would still require a separate transcript from each of those institutions for all post-secondary education that you've completed, even if it doesn't apply to a law degree or an undergraduate degree for those of you who are applying to master's programs. And for those of you who English is not your first language, we also accept TOEFL and IELTS scores, and we forward those to the schools as well in what we call the law school report. And for those who are educated outside of the United States or have education completed outside of the United States, the same would apply with all of the transcripts. You have an official transcript sent to us from the issuing institution, and then we outsource an evaluation, authentication, and transmission to the participating law schools. So just to get into a little more, once you create an account, you can search alphabetically, as I said, or you can search by location. We give you a map. You can click on different states, different areas that you're interested in. It'll give you a list of all of the schools that are in that particular location. And this is an example of something that you would see if you did a search. You'll see the name of the school, which is a link to, again, that brief information that the law schools, sort of just bullet points about their school, their program, their campus, with a link to their website for obviously more comprehensive information. You can also see the areas of interest that they provide coursework in, or they may provide a degree in that field. And that's a way that you can choose which programs you're interested in. If you see the add button, you can add that to a list of schools that you can keep in your account that you can refer back to, and you can keep track of when their deadlines are, what their requirements are, and you can keep it all in one place. And there's certain searches and filters that you can apply to those schools to help you maneuver through that list. Another search you can do once you've created an account is an application search, and this is much more direct. If there's a particular area of interest that you're interested in, compliance or tax law, or a specific degree that you're interested in, you have a law degree and now you want to do an LLM, or you have a bachelor's degree and you want to get a master's in legal studies, you can search specifically for those programs, or search specifically for an area of interest. And then you can also search under method of instruction, on campus, online, or combined. And this will give you a much more focused result of programs. And once you receive your list, it gives you when the deadline is, again, what requirements they have. Do they require 1 letter of recommendation, 2 letters of recommendation? And again, you have a link to the law school's website. And we always encourage you to look thoroughly at the law school's website to see if there's any information that they have on the website that they may not necessarily have included in the information that they've given to LSAC. Particularly if you're filling out an electronic application, make sure you read through all of the instructions before you start filling it out, to make sure that you have everything that you need that school requires. And just a brief overview of the fees. Again, to create an account and to do searches, you don't have to pay anything. That's free. We give you access to all of that database information. If you're just using us to apply electronically, it's a one-time fee of $35, and that allows you to apply to as many schools as you want, that one-time $35 fee. There may be an additional law school application fee, and that varies by school, and the fee will be noted on the application of the school. Again, our service, the document assembly service, that's a one-time fee of $50. So you pay the $50, you're applying to 5 schools. You send us all of your documentation. We will send those schools a report. We will send those 5 schools your law school report. And the law school report fee is $30 for each school that we send a report to. And then we have the International Transcript Authentication and Evaluation Service. Again, we outsource that to ACRO. We refer to it as ITAS. That's a one-time fee of $135. So that gives you an evaluation that is included with the law school report, which includes copies of your transcripts, your letters, and if you have an English proficiency score. Again, your application itself is separate, and that's where you would include your resume, personal statement, writing sample, any other requirements that the law school has asked for. And that's basically it for the services that we offer. If you need any more information, obviously you can visit lsac.org for information about all of these programs, all of the services, and to do research into what schools you may be interested in, or narrowing down that list that you have. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A section. And I'm going to toss it back to Giselle.
Sure. Yeah, we do have a couple of questions that we'll focus on now. So the first is, what specific resources would you recommend to prepare myself for the LSAT? So I don't know, Heidi, if you want to take down your screen, we can just sort of up here. So typically, master's programs won't require the legal master's programs, legal certificates won't require an LSAT. That said, if you are applying for a JD program and possibly an LLM program, you may need to sit for the exam. So in terms of resources, I will say that the LSAC at lsac.org, we do have some terrific resources to help you prepare. We have an exclusive partnership with the Khan Academy. I hope that some of you are familiar with the Khan Academy. They do a lot of online education and test prep. LSAC is partnered with Khan Academy to offer free test prep on from our website. You can find it, and it's really top-notch education. In addition to the Khan Academy resources, LSAC has 2 different subscription type processes that you can sign up for. One is called LSAT Prep, and the other is LSAT Prep Plus through our Law Hub platform. LSAT Prep is free, and it offers you 4 prior administrated LSATs that you can practice, full-length LSATs. The Prep Plus service is a $99 subscription fee that provides you with more than 70 previously administered LSATs, full-length LSATs that you can practice with. In addition to the exams themselves that you're offered through these services, you're being offered the exams on the exact platform under which you will take the test itself. So familiarizing yourself with the test platform is also really terrific and another great reason to use these resources. So I hope that answers that question. There was, excuse me, a question also about GPA First Policies, which I wasn't familiar with, but I understand now GPA First admission policies are admission policies whereby schools basically just look at a GPA first as the first line of deciding if the application can move through the rest of the admission process. I'm not going to say that that sort of policy wouldn't ever exist with these programs, but I think it would be unusual, again, because in the legal master's world, they're really looking for people who are professionals very often in a field, who are looking to advance their professional credentials, if you will, and knowledge, obviously, by getting this extra education. And so in my experience, the admission to those programs really, it doesn't disregard a GPA, but that is sort of at the lower end of consideration in the admission process. What's most considered is sort of the professional work that you're doing. Heidi, would you agree?
Right. Yes, I would say it's a more comprehensive look at your application and not just your LSAT score, not just your GPA. That's definitely something that is more prominent among JD programs, I would say. But yes, they're definitely looking to see if you have any additional graduate work, if you have professional experience, what your letters of recommendation say. For sure. And your personal statement, I think, says a lot.
Absolutely.
And it does vary depending on how large the program is. If you're applying to a larger program, they might look at a GPA a little more than a program that, is 20 people, as opposed to a program that might be 100 people. So it's very, it varies by school.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the programs that I had been associated with, really one of the most important things in the admission process was sort of seeing where a person was professionally at that moment in time and where they wanted to go, and sort of that determination of, is this the right program to get them there? So it was really about that statement of intention, sort of what was the intention of the applicant to do with this particular, because these are, in the legal master's worlds, they're very specific programs. So LLMs are a little bit different, but certainly LLMs for JD holding attorneys, that would be true too, right? You're not going to go and seek LLM in tax if it's not your intention to practice tax law.
Exactly.
Another question, what are some trends you have noticed, especially with COVID, on law school applicants and application volumes? So Heidi, I wonder, from your perspective as somebody who works specifically with these programs and has for a number of years, if you've noticed sort of any differences in the application pool.
I think last year we probably noticed a bit of a difference. Obviously, the volumes were a little down just because there was so much uncertainty as to what was going to happen, particularly for the LLM programs for international lawyers. And even with LLM programs for domestic educated lawyers, nobody knew when the schools were going to open. Was it going to be virtual? Was it going to be in person? So there was a lot of uncertainty for that. I think this year, it's rebounded tremendously. Our volumes are definitely up. I think people are ready to go back out into the world and continue with their lives. And, if they want to improve their work standing, then, I think it's something that is definitely picking up this year for sure.
Great. Yeah. I mean, on the JD side, I could tell you, which is the numbers that I tend to watch, application volume was way up last year. I think that was, pretty well-known news in the end, somewhere between, I think, 20 and 25% increase from the prior year. This year, things seem to be maybe a little bit up from last year, but nowhere near like it was in 2020. It is interesting to me, though, because it does seem, again, especially with the legal master's programs, those programs, because so many of them were online even before the pandemic, they seemed very, sort of ready for this change, in that not much had to change about those programs. So I don't know specifically about the volume of, if the volume increased or decreased for those programs, though. But Heidi's absolutely right. LLM International, especially, had a rough time, but does seem to be rebounding quite nicely this year. So hopefully we're getting past all of this. Another question about LSAT, this one asking about LSAT Flex. So LSAT Flex doesn't really exist anymore. For those of you listening in, LSAT Flex was the immediate solution for providing the LSAT when the pandemic first began. Prior to the pandemic, LSAT exam administration was always in person, in sort of large test centers, auditoriums, with live proctors. And so once the pandemic took hold, we obviously could not administer our exam in that way. So we fairly quickly moved it onto an online platform, and initially were offering the test as only a 3-section exam. And that is what we called LSAT Flex. We have since moved back to our tradition of offering an unscored section along with the other 3 sections. So now it's a 4-section exam. It is still offered online remotely. People take it at home or in a hotel room or whatever quiet space with Wi-Fi that you can. And it is proctored remotely. And that seems to be going really well. We're in the 2nd year of administration in that way, and do anticipate for at least the foreseeable future that we will remain in that way. But it's not called LSAT Flex anymore. That was, again, just sort of the short-term solution. It is now just the LSAT. What else do we got here?
There's one about what % of graduates end up in their chosen field within 6 months of graduation. And I mean, I'll say one thing about it, and Giselle probably can say a lot more about it. That is very school specific, and it is one of those pieces of information that you can find when you do research on our site. It's often something that the schools will publish. I believe it's an ABA requirement for them to publish it. So it's very easy to find that information, but
Yes.
it is very school specific.
Right, totally agree with what Heidi said. But again, we want to sort of suss out which program you're at, might be of interest in that you're asking about, right? So for JD programs, all of that information is absolutely required to be listed very transparently. You can find the information at the individual school websites, along with their bar pass rates and a lot of data. That's for JD programs. For LLMs and the legal master's programs and the certificate programs, that kind of data is not the requirement to publish it and publish it transparently does not reach the same level as it does with the JD programs. So you're going to have to dig a little with the individual schools. And that's one of those things that I said, sort of at the beginning about sort of doing your homework and casting a wide net. You want to ask the schools those questions, right? You want the school to have kept that information. I will say again, having come from a program where where I ran the admissions for a legal master's program, it is a little bit wonky for the legal master's degrees because so many of those folks are already employed. Remember that oftentimes those degrees, those programs are about advancing you in your career rather than sort of, you know, the first degree to get you into a field like a JD would be, right? That's the degree you need to become a lawyer. You don't necessarily need a legal master's degree in health, for example, in health sciences to be working at a health insurance company or at a pharmaceutical company. But having that degree, having that extra knowledge may very well advance you once you're in those jobs. So it's, you know, it's a tougher question on the employment side, but it's definitely one that you'll want to pursue with the schools and the programs that you're looking at. And again, I think, again, because many of these programs, especially in the legal master's world, not as true with LLMs, but in the legal master's world, they're small programs. So you should be able to tap into the alumni base for the programs that you're looking at and get a sense of sort of what people are doing. Question, what are the differences in the application process between JD, LLM, and master's degree and legal certificate? So I'll start us out, and then Heidi, maybe I'll flip to you because you can talk about the difference between CAS and DAS to throw out some acronyms. But
Yes.
In terms of the general differences between JD, LLM, and master's degree and legal certificate programs. So JD programs will absolutely require an LSAT test score. They will require your graduation from an undergraduate institution so that you have a 4-year underlying baccalaureate degree. And they will require a personal statement, letters of recommendation, sort of all of those things that we touched on before. Master's degree and legal certificate programs, they may require less. They may just look for the transcripts, your professional resume, and a statement of intentions, for example. Very few, if any of them, are going to require the LSAT or any other standardized test. Again, they're looking more for the professionalism of the person. And LLMs, it again will matter whether we're talking about an LLM that is an advanced law degree for JD holders, where obviously that's going to require that you have a JD, or an LLM for international lawyers, which would require an underlying, usually LLB or other foreign law degree. Heidi?
Yes, exactly. And I would say that I don't know of any LLM programs that require the LSAT. So the JD would be the only degree program that would require the LSAT. The master's and legal certificate programs and the LLM do not. So, you know, especially for lawyers educated outside the US, there's an advantage if you're not sure if you want to do a JD or an LLM degree. I think as we've said already, JD is very regulated by the ABA. So there are very strict requirements that they have to meet. LLM, masters, and legal certificates are not as strictly regulated. They more have guidelines to follow. So there's a lot more flexibility in their admissions than a JD program would have. You know, if you're applying to a master's or a legal certificate or an LLM, you know, the school may say, I require, or you know, a law degree in one country may require 2 pieces. Maybe you didn't do that second piece. They'll take you maybe with that first piece. You know, we have people who have engineering degrees in some countries, and they've taken the patent bar. They don't actually have a law degree from that country. You know, an LLM program, if you want to get into patent law, or if you want to do something along those lines, you can apply to that. You know, a JD, generally, you have to have a bachelor's degree. You have to take the LSAT. So I would say it's, and particularly with masters and certificates, again, they can be much smaller programs, and the schools just really want to offer these programs, and they want to just educate people. It's not about how many people am I going to have in my program? I have to hit this, you know, a certain mark for a number of people, you know, who are basically, you know, paying for this program. So there's a lot more, again, flexibility, and I guess less hurdles that you need to you know, jump over to apply or be admitted to one of those programs.
Yeah. So there's a sort of follow-up question to this is, what would you say are the most important factors when deciding which law school to attend? So I'll, you know, jump on that and say specifically with the master's, and it's true with the LLM programs too, but maybe to a slightly lesser degree, and the certificate programs, is again, in sort of casting that wide net that I spoke about, these are very specific programs. So when it comes to the search, probably the most important thing is who has the program that I'm looking for, right? So let's take health law as an example, which is sort of a more common legal master's degree, since it's such a highly regulated industry. So there are a number of law schools that offer legal masters in health law. So let's say all of those are online. So how do I make the decision about which one of those I might want to attend or apply? And that's sort of what I was touching on in my earlier presentation, to say sort of the online stuff matters. So you'll want to look at the actual coursework and see if any of them line up better with your expectations and your sort of career trajectory that you're working on. But also there are other things. Even if it's fully online, does it matter to you if it's in your geographical region? Maybe it does, because maybe you work for an employer where it's going to be more recognized if you choose the school that's in your region versus the school that's further away, even though you could access it from anywhere. If it matters to you about the other resources that you might be able to take advantage of at a law school, that also is something to really ask about. Different law schools have a different way of sort of involving what I'll call the non-JD community, sort of the students in the other programs. Do you want to be sort of your own community on its own at the law school? Or is your hope that you're part of the larger sort of JD community? So those are things that you can assess as you go through the process.
I would also add that, you know, a lot of people put importance on rankings. And for some things that's important, you know, for JD programs, some LLM programs, but it's more important to look at the actual school and how it fits your needs than, you know, where this school is ranked, the size of the school, the faculty, maybe in the area that you're interested in studying, they have a renowned faculty member who you want to study with. A lot of these, I know LLM programs, you know, they require research. Maybe there's somebody, a faculty member at that particular school that you would really like to do research with. So, you know, there's just, again, especially what Giselle said, you know, do they cover the area that I'm interested in? Obviously is, you know, a pretty basic one. But there's so much, you know, other things to consider. If location, if you are going to be relocating, you know, what location do you want to relocate to? You know, this school has the program I'm really interested in, but, you know, it's in an area that gets a lot of snow, or it's in the desert and I don't like winter, or I don't like heat. You know, there's a lot of really simple things that you need to look at. You know, for an LLM program, it's a year, so it's a commitment. You know, the master's is generally a year, certificates maybe a semester. But again, whether it's online or in person, that's another thing that you really need to look at.
Great. How early should I start preparing for the application? What deadlines should I be on the lookout for? How long will the application process take me? Heidi, you want to start us out with that one?
Yes, absolutely. The deadline that is most important is the application submission deadline. A lot of schools will not take applications past that deadline. So you want to make sure that you get that application in. And for Lsac, it's a separate process. So you can go ahead and complete that application and submit that before you've done anything else in regards to your credentials. But for your credentials, if you're getting letters of recommendation, you want to make sure that you notify your recommenders in enough time. Is it during a time where a lot of other students are going to be asking for letters? So you want to make sure you give them enough lead time to get your letters to us. For transcripts, depending on where they're coming from, you want to make sure, we usually recommend at least 4 to 6 weeks before the application deadline to get your documents to us so that we can go through the process. If you send your transcript to us and it turns out you have exchange work, then you need to go back and request that additional transcript. So you want to make sure that you know all of the documents that you need to have sent. But again, that application deadline is definitely the most important. Or if there's any scholarship deadlines, you want to be aware of those. Schools may have an early submission deadline, or they may have a scholarship deadline that's before their actual application deadline. But you want to make sure you meet that scholarship deadline with all of the documents that you need to submit.
The other thing that I will add is that many of these programs, especially the certificate programs, but often even the master's programs, they have multiple start dates per year. So unlike JD programs where they basically, most of them only start, end of August, beginning of September, many of these programs take a cohort approach. And so I know the program that I used to run, we had 3 different master's starting dates, and we had certificate starting dates that were basically like every 6 or 8 weeks. So in terms of thinking about your application and when you want to do that, in some ways you have more latitude, right? Because, just missing the fall won't mean that you miss it completely for a year. But on the other hand, and again, since so many of these programs are designed for adult learners who are in professional careers, you'll want to think about your sort of work-life education balance and when it will make sense for you to begin such a program. So, and sometimes you can sort of start and stop out in it. So for example, if you can't go to school during summertime because you have kids at home or something along those lines, oftentimes that's okay. If you're in a certificate or a master's program, you can skip that one term and then restart. But you'll want to sort of think about mapping out the whole program, and that will help to sort of steer to when you should apply and begin such a program. So I think we can do maybe one more question, or maybe just some final comments would be great. Heidi?
I do just want to address this one question. What type of required educational credit should I present when applying to LLM or other programs? So an LLM generally requires a law degree. If it's in the US, a JD. If it's outside the US, generally they're referred to LLB, Bachelor of Laws. We actually have a list on our website of what degree is required from each country if you're from outside the US. That you should have that degree most likely to apply to an LLM program. Again, schools are a little bit flexible. Contact the schools if you don't have the exact degree that they're looking for. Sometimes they will let you apply with other experience. For some of the other programs, generally it's going to just be the bachelor's degree. They're not going to require a law degree from you. So basically anything that is that law degree or bachelor degree and anything that contributes to it. Again, if you did a study abroad exchange, that's what's going to be required from LSAC, and definitely from the law schools in order to apply to those programs.
Perfect. Well, I just want to take my final words to really encourage our participants to do their homework, to look at the law schools carefully, to be sure that it's the right program for you, that it's the right fit. You know, obviously there's going to be a financial commitment on your part, but there's also a life commitment here. And so when you're putting your time and your energy into something like this, you want to be sure that you're making good choices. LSAC is here to support you. That is what we do. That is our mission, to support students through their journey to getting into law school and beyond. And so we look forward to working with you and encourage you to pop out to the website and further look at everything that Heidi and I have spoken to you about today. And we wish you the very best of luck, of course.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us today. And I echo what Giselle said. You know, if you have any questions about anything, we are absolutely here to help you. If you can't find it on the website, you know, please send an email or give us a call.
Thank you, Giselle and Heidi. That was wonderful. We appreciate the time that you took out of your days to provide that information for us and all the attendees. We have a little bit of time, 5 minutes before the Q&A with the law schools. So go ahead, stretch your legs, come back, and all of the law schools will be available to talk to you. You'll go to the exhibitor tab and you'll be able to navigate which schools are here and which schools have representatives to answer all of your questions. If you have any issues or anything that you run into that you need assisting with, we do have team members from Curtin and National Jurist on the other end waiting, just on email, call, whatever you need. But again, thank you for joining us today in this session, and you have a wonderful day.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Good thing.